Hello again. It's me again, John from Oregon. I had a little time to put together a presentation, and I'm glad I did. Although I'm not exactly sure I'm pleased where I'm going, but I'm kind of really into this data collection stuff a little bit. I'm going to delve a little bit into what we do for data collection, our performance measure around pavement condition, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences between what we do and the MAP 21 requirements, and talk a little bit about how maybe I would hope that we can resolve some of those differences. This presentation's again sort of geared towards the pavement management folks, the people who produce preservation materials and stuff. They're probably going to want to tune out because it's all pavement management stuff, but that's my world. So performance measures are not new. Oregon's got a whole bunch of performance measures. Pavement is just one of many. You can see here, this is off of our key performance measure website. For ODOT, we've got all kinds of measures. We got a bunch on safety. We've got some on mobility and economic vitality. Those are important things that government's trying to do. We've got stuff on preservation. We've got, obviously, pavement is part of that, but bridge preservation is equally, if not more so, important in some ways. I tend to have battles with my bridge counterparts, but honestly, we're on this together. That the bridges and pavements are really big value assets. They're both very important, and the preservation of both those systems is critical to getting freight moved around our state. We've got sustainability measures, which actually preservation can help us with, but I don't know that we've ever really connected those two together all that well. And then we've got stewardship measures. So, if you click on the link and the pavement performance measure, you get a page, and this gets updated every year. Our key performance measure for pavement condition talks a little bit about what our conditions are. We use a fair or better type of a system to assess where we are, and then we have targets around that fair or better. And historically, our target has been 78% of our pavement network fair or better. And that, and honestly, that was the number we had back in late 90s. It doesn't mean that that's an optimum level. It's just that was the funding that we had, that we thought we were going to have to maintain. And it turned out over the course of the early 2000s, we did a lot of work with pavement preservation techniques on our lower volume roads, and that really helped us out. And so our actual numbers with the bars got us well above the pavement performance measure. We're doing pretty well at the moment. We're at 87% fair or better. That number, though, is forecast actually now to come down because, honestly, we don't have the funding to maintain that over time. And there was a funding package that we were trying to get last session that kind of died. I think it'll get picked back up, and it would have a lot of money that would go back to bridges as well as the pavement preservation stuff. So what I'm trying to get at with this one is our pavement performance measure is fair or better, which is kind of, think about it this way, it's kind of the inverse of percentage poor. So for at 87% fair or better, that means 13% of our system rates out as poor. And I'll relate that to the MAP 21 in a moment. So this is how we collect pavement condition. We have about 8,000 miles of roadway, centerline miles, roughly. About half of that system, we use the automated process. We have the vendor come and do the whole shoot and match, the roughness as well as the condition assessment with the cameras and stuff. The other half of the system, we're using a windshield-based method. And that other half of the system is mostly our lower volume roads. The reason we do that is the reason we have two systems, why we don't use this for everything is basically there's a cost associated with getting that additional information. It's good information, but the thing is, we have found that it isn't absolutely necessary or essential to collect this level of information on some of these lower volume roads where we're not doing very major treatments. To give you some examples, the roads we collect this on, we invest $100 million a year in our pavements. The roads we collect this on, we're only investing $13 million a year. So why would we spend, an additional, say $500,000 to go collect those roads, when in reality we're only spending a fraction of our overall pavement budget on them. So that was a business decision we made, and it's worked well for us. But we're going to have to do, actually, to meet MAP 21, we're going to have to do a little more of this on roads that really we've been only investing a little bit of money and been using that. So this is, in a nutshell, our fair better number is based on some sort of condition index, right? You have to have something that breaks out your system so that you have your goods and fares separated out from your poors and very poors. And we have a system that's 0 to 100, like a PCI. These are the breakpoints that we use in our system. It's a distress-based system, just like a PCI type thing. And it's done where with the automated stuff, we do a 10th mile breakdown of the distresses, compute the indexes every 10th of a mile, and come up with an overall number. And there's a lot of stuff on here, and I don't know if I want to get too far in the weeds because I only have 10 minutes, but the point is we compute a composite score for every 10th, and that composite score is based on cracking, patching, raveling. It's a composite of all that stuff. We also compute a rutting score, and whatever's lower of the two basically determines the overall score for that 10th. Then we do a weighted average across the entire pavement management section, and I gave an example here across the bottom. This is an atypical section, but let's just pretend that we had a section that was half a mile long. Most of our sections are 5 mile long, 10 mile long, what have you, but if we had a half mile section, we'd compute a composite index for each, we'd compute a rut index for each, and whichever is lower then would become the overall score for that 10th. So for this one, got to look at my screen, I got a composite score of 75, that's why it's yellow, fair, and a rut score of 55, it's also fair, but the lower of the two is a 55, and that is what would be used in the overall calculation. And so you could follow that out for all these. But in essence, here's where we're going to differ with MAP 21 a little bit, is that those 5 segments then will compute an overall score, and the overall score for this segment is a 76. So that's a good, and so all those tenths, that entire half mile section counts as good in our system. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it's different than how MAP 21 is going to do it. MAP 21 looks at each 10th mile segment in your entire network, and that segment gets washed out in our system. So that's a difference. I'm going to list out some differences from us to MAP 21, and I don't mean for this to be critical of MAP 21. Actually, MAP 21's got a lot of good things in it, but we do have some comments that we put forth in the proposed rulemaking. I'm hoping some of those actually go through, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those. So MAP 21 has a annual interstate collection requirement, and in my view, that's a little bit more than is necessary, to be honest. For the purposes of making sure that you're doing good, as Swee pointed out, moving average, a 3-year moving average, I like that approach because, honestly, when you collect data, even if you collect the system twice in the same year, I doubt you're going to get the same answer all the time. It's just the nature of the variability in how you collect information. And so what this does is we're going to have to spend, literally, we're going to have to spend another $150,000 a year to collect this additional information. And I'm not convinced it's going to provide value, so we'll just put it at that. There's another one. Map 21 includes IRI in the measure. IRI is good on rural highways. It's an important thing the public sees and feels, but on urban highways it really doesn't really give us a good indicator, and it's a lagging indicator nonetheless. So it's not that sensitive to pavement preservation, at least in the short term. In the long term, it can be. Map 21 has some issues around the definition and the calculation of what cracking is, and that's because, quite frankly, there's no national standard on what is a crack and how to measure percent cracking. You know, so it's, on the one hand, it's good to have this in Map 21 because it kind of gets this stuff done, but on the other hand, we really don't have a recognized standard in how to measure this stuff, and that's a weakness right now. Map 21 does have this percent cracking, but it doesn't have anything about severity, and here's my beef again. Severity is really important. 50% low severity longitudinal cracking means one thing to me, and 5% moderate means a completely different thing to me in terms of the types of treatments I might consider for that road and how that road's doing overall. So, of course, most systems that are PCI based do have severity level incorporated in, and I think it's an important thing to have in a performance measure. Map 21 doesn't have patching, potholes, or raveling, but our system does, and so I'll show you in the next slide that we'll see a big difference in what the performance measure outcome is because of this. We have a lot of roads that our maintenance forces go out and put drag box patches, skin patches, blade patches over the bad stuff, and so those cracks are invisible. But there's all sorts of patches, scars, potholes, and things like that that are on the surface that are important to have in your measure. Faster. Okay. This will be in the presentations if you want to read all this stuff, but I'll go real fast here. Our thresholds are different. Our Reading threshold, for example, is about twice what Map 21 is. Map 21 uses the 10th mile increments like we do, but they don't break at pavement types and at bridges. So there's going to be some discrepancies we're going to have to sort out about, if we have a break in pavement type that spans within that 10th mile, who owns it, how do we determine what the condition is, etc. We got the Map 21 that counts 10th mile segments with missing data as poor, doesn't do it in our system. Map 21 aggregates at the network level, not at the section level. So this goes back to, real quick, on mine I had all those color bars, I had one red bar, but in our system it all washed out. With Map 21, that red bar actually counts, that red tenth. Map 21 includes all of our NHS roads regardless of jurisdiction. So we've got some local roads in our system that are not part of ODOT system but are part of the local system that are NHS. And it doesn't include the rest of our state roads. So there's going to be a difference in the performance measure between what Map 21 reports and what we report. Map 21 rounds off to the nearest tenth of a percent. We round off to the nearest whole number. And again, goes back to that noise thing. I think we're going to see a lot of noise when it gets right down to the nearest tenth of a percent. Map 21 uses a lane mile figure to base the percentages on. We use a center line mile. And so the issue that's of all this for us is, will the public understand the differences? Are we going to have to explain away, will we continue to use the measure we use today and explain away these differences, or are we going to have to adopt, a whole new standard? And that remains to be seen, and that's a decision we'll have to make as an agency. But we really do have an apple and orange thing. If you look at the 2014 data, and you run it through this, and this doesn't include the local routes, this just includes the state highways because I have easy access to that information, right? But if you look at the interstate system, our system says we're 71% good. Map 21 says we're 37% good. That's a huge, huge difference, right? If you look at the percent poor on our interstate system, we're at 1.6. Map 21 says we're at nearly 3%. That's not that that's good, but at least that the public may not see a big difference in that number. When you look at again percent good though off the interstate, big differences. Why? Mostly because of our system. We're counting potholes and patches. Map 21 is only counting cracks and ruts. The percent poor is similar, but it's off quite a bit. 14 versus 2.3, and again, it's because of this issue with patching, the potholes, the rutting of thresholds, completely different. So we're getting wide variations, and I don't know if that's such a bad thing. It's just now we have some explaining to do, and that's going to be a little bit of a challenge because the public doesn't want to know about the details. They just want to understand, are you doing good? And if you're not doing good, they're kind of mad at you. So, all right, how does this really, this gets down to the meat of why I'm here at this particular conference talking about this stuff is how does the pavement preservation get affected by this stuff? And, really, unfortunately, I don't see that pavement preservation has big impacts, gets big impacts with these performance measures. I mean, it's going to have long-term will, but in the short run, IRI doesn't change a whole lot with pavement pres. Rutting doesn't change a whole lot unless you're doing something that corrects those ruts. And typically pavement pres, the thinnest pavement pres that does that is some sort of a hot mix or a recycle type thing. Our patching isn't going to really do anything unless it's on concrete, and diamond grinding will certainly help on the IRI measure. But the way the measures are set up right now, particularly in Map 21, is they really don't respond to pavement preservation treatments. If you ask me, I think you're not really going to see anything from the short run. And somebody mentioned yesterday, I think it was Chris, said you can sort of use some pavement preservation techniques to get the measures to improve, but really, is that the right thing to do on a road that's bad? So what's missing? To me, that this is the big thing that's missing right now in the overall pavement performance measures of Map 20 was having something on cost effectiveness. I'd love to see that as an actual performance measure. We could include, the good news is we could include that in the TAMP documents that we do and develop, and which is part of the Map 21 as well. But we don't really have that as a key performance measure right now. So we had some comments. One of them is that I felt that the pavement performance measures weren't really sensitive to the cost-effective stuff that most agencies do, especially on the local networks. And the other one was, and I don't want to read all this stuff, it takes too much time, but these were verbatim comments that we made on the Map 21. They're just not picking up the good things of what pavement preservation does. So why do we collect and report data? Well, we want to be accountable to the taxpayer. We want to monitor the system health. We're doing that. We want to make more informed decisions around pavement investments. We want to monitor the effects of pavement design, materials, and policy decisions. So those are all pavement management type things anyway that get done. And because the feds require us to. And the correct answer really is all the above. All those are important things. And so that's why we do all this work. Thanks for the opportunity to speak and moan and groan a little bit, but hopefully it was constructive. Questions at the end. Thanks.